with that statement, like there being $1.5 trillion annual spending power that we're contributing. Yeah. What does that large number kind of speak to you about where we're at as a people?
I think it speaks to, it's a surface level sign of progression.
Okay.
Right? Because, I mean, the Black community has always moved markets from starting rock and roll to jazz. And, you know, black people have always moved markets culturally.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until integration occurred where we started to move markets economically because our dollars were diluted. So prior to integration, we've heard of Black Wall Street in Tulsa. We had a Black Wall Street in Durham. We had a prominent black neighborhood in Charlotte called Brooklyn. So black people have always historically had worked together because we didn't have any other choice.
Mm-hmm.
There was always a few outliers, of course, that were successful, the entertainers, the athletes. But after integration, our neighborhoods were separated and we were allowed to move freely. So our dollars were allowed to thus move freely.
Yeah.
So we started to take our dollars away from the black grocery store owner, the black doctor, to go chase the white grocery store or the white doctor.
Yeah.
And in doing that, we kind of crippled our economic base as a people. And I think really it disunited us. Just that whole notion of us being integrated, we felt that, oh, now we just as good as them. You know what I'm saying? Now I could live in this neighborhood and you gotta say I'm just as good as you. And that's not really how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I got questions about that. Yeah, I'm like, that's one of the questions. But also, like, how is it possible that we can own so much power but have so much little wealth? Like, spending habits, we're not educated. Like, what is that? Like,
yeah, I think it's that. I think it's not the spending habits, but it's just a lack of value in people that look like us. Like, we'll go. We've been there, right? I have a black brand, right? And I still have people that ask, yo, let me get it but you got to take the shipping off. And I'm like, bro, you don't ask Tommy Hilfiger for this. You don't ask Michael Kors for a discount. Why are you asking me? Or we'll go to a black restaurant that's black owned, but we'll expect the service to be bad.
Yeah.
And even if the service is bad, we'll knock it off and never go there again. Even though that we can walk around a department store and be followed around, but yet we'll still spend thousands of dollars there because we think that's flexing or that's showing them something.
Yeah.
But we're putting dollars in their pocket. And I think just the importance of group economics hasn't been championed by our leaders.
Yeah.
Like Martin talked about it, but we don't hear that side of Martin. Unless you study Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, you won't know that they had economic agendas.
Yeah.
So prior to Martin's death, actually, one of his last speeches, he was in Memphis trying to unite sanitation workers and kind of rally people behind the Poor People's Campaign. And they were going to do a march on Washington in April of that year. And he was going to take 1 million poor people and pretty much demand economic inclusion and fair wages, all that stuff. American problem. Like, there's far more poor whites than there are blacks.
Yeah.
But whites have so much wealth as a group, it kind of balances out where, you can't really tell. But we have so little wealth that when we're poor, we are poor. And it's hard for us to move from poor to middle class, even upward middle class. That takes generations. And we're usually starting out like me. I'm probably the first generation college graduate. I'm going to be a first generation person to be able to pass along some wealth.
Something. Yeah.
So that's me in 2000 something when I had great grandparents that have just continuously been poor.
Yeah.
So I think it's partly us not being educated on group economics and just not having pride within people that look like us. Like, I feel like you should shop black because they are black. If their service is bad, help them out. Tell them.
What is that helping out look like?
So, for example, if I'm in a restaurant and the waitress is bad or the service is bad or they're overwhelmed and it takes a long time, you make a suggestion. Say, look, man, I love shopping here. You're black owned, but y'all gotta get XYZ right. You know what I'm saying? Y'all get this right and y'all perfect. Make a suggestion. Don't bash them or anything like that because we have so little that the people that do start businesses in our communities, the people that are trying to provide jobs for people that look like us, have to be protected. They have to be.
And I think it's also too in the way that you say it. because like I feel like with some of the, I think a couple black owned businesses come to mind, like restaurants or whatever, that service is kind of bad or whatever, but it's just like from outside, from what I've seen, they don't take too kindly to someone. You probably know someone I'm talking about. They don't take too kindly to you giving suggestions or whatever like that, and yet you're black owned and you want to succeed, but your business is trash.
It's all about tone. It's all about tone. It's all about tone. Because you can say like, yo, this trash, but if you come to them like, yo, I really like spending money here. I want to see y'all do successful, but you gotta get this. And they could be like, yeah, I'm trying. You know, we're understaffed. We don't have, you know. But a lot of time it's just a lack of resources. It could be just be a lack of capital. And they just don't have the ability to train and get good talent.
One quote that you had said, well, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but I have here, getting out of the ghetto, living amongst whites, black Americans think with that we think we made it. And you talked about in one of the episodes, like because of, and like we'll do this thought, desegregation was bad for us, right? You said something. You said something about that, and I've heard that before. Like desegregation was bad for us. Kind of expound on that, because I remember in one of the episodes you were saying how, okay, we got desegregated, now we could go shop at the white store, and we put that value, like, oh, I get to go shop at the white store over shopping at the black now, or whatever, but we were good beforehand, chilling with our own businesses. So expound on that thought.
So that's just like something that, you know, I understand it. I have two sides. So I understand why we did that, right? Because it was, if someone prohibits you from doing something or going somewhere, you're gonna place value on being able to now go do that. But I think what the mistake is that we didn't really understand this how America works and the concept of economics. Because when you take money outside of your neighborhood, you're taking away somebody's ability to pay their bills, somebody's ability to hire people. So that's jobs. So the neighborhood is going to crumble if you continue to take dollars out and then you just live there. But I think that when you look at desegregation as a whole, on the surface, it was great, but it was supposed to be separate but equal, right? And then once we integrated, it was said, oh, we're gonna get access to better schools and but that's not how it happened. All the best of the whites went to the suburbs, and they had their schools that we couldn't get into. So schools were integrated, but we're still in all black and brown neighborhoods with schools that are mostly all black and brown. So we're not getting the same equal access to education and resources as these white schools are. And if we say, oh, I see value in going to the Macy's. Now I can go to the Macy's and shop. I can go to the Gucci and shop. That's surface level. You know, I can wear the same thing you wear, but if your wealth is 10 times more than mine. So why am I spending this money on this? I don't have the means to do that. So I think it's just a sickening in our mindset that makes that be achievable. Like we want to live amongst people that have hated us historically or that have marginalized us historically. Just to say, F you, I live here too now. Instead of making the neighborhood that you do live in better.
So with taxes, it kind of works. So we'll go back to the New Deal. So the New Deal happened, I think, right after the Great Depression, FDR. He signed this New Deal, and that largely led to the creation of the suburbs. So how schools are funded and how all public infrastructure is funded in communities is based on property tax. So what FDR did with the banks was say, all right, we're going to give you money to build up these suburban communities for people coming back from the war, to spur economic development, but we're going to make these neighborhoods majority white. You can't lend to any black people. So all the whites obviously left inner cities and flocked to suburbs. And what that did was the banks worked in conjunction with the government to then say that if this neighborhood is majority black, they're going to draw a red line around it and say that you can't lend to anybody there. They're high risk neighborhoods. So what that did was, just from them placing that label on all black and brown communities, it lowered the value of the property. So now you have lower property value. The people that are living there can't migrate out, so their dollars are trapped. They're not working, you know, huge jobs at the time, mostly factory jobs. People in the inner city in the 20s and 30s. So all those dollars are just being circulated in schools, and the schools infrastructure is performing lower than the suburban schools that has all of the white dollars. So now when you're me, or you're anybody that maybe goes to college, graduates, and can get a good job, good salary job, right? You leave an all-black community to go to the suburbs, all you're doing is taking that good paying job and the taxes from that good paying job that could go to fund and make that school better. You're taking that and you're putting it right back into their system.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the negative.
And you had mentioned redlining. I had a question about that. I wanted you to go into that, explain like what that is, because I always heard it, good times, you hear about it or whatever, but nobody really ever explained like what exactly. I kind of think you kind of gave a tidbit.
So it literally was like maps, and they looked at the people that lived in the communities largely from census data, and they said, okay, this is a 95% black neighborhood, usually in the inner city. We're gonna draw a red line around it and say, all right, anybody that is trying to get a property in this neighborhood, you don't lend to them. They're high risk.
Wow.
So if you don't have money to just organically buy a home because you don't have wealth,
but in the neighborhoods that were ghettos,
literally
that's
that's what started the whole ghetto suburb, because FDR was funding the expansion of suburbs. Usually, and a suburb is literally anywhere where you see cookie cutter houses that all look the same, that little plotted. That was all built back in 20s and 30s. Those are suburbs, and blacks were not allowed to live there because the developers were getting their money from the banks. So the banks said, "Look, we're gonna give y'all this money to build these houses, but you ain't gonna sell them to black people
because they believe they could pay them."
Yeah. Not even because they didn't think they could pay. Just because they didn't want to lend to black people. Like Jackie Robinson experienced this. He tried to live in the suburbs and they wouldn't lend to him. They said, no, you ain't gonna live around here. And eventually he found something. And I think in Greenwich, Connecticut, it was. But that was a largely integrated community. So it wasn't like he wanted to live where he wanted to live. Yeah. So, I mean, this was the 20s and 30s. So racism was still alive back then.
Crazy, bro. What are some key things that Black America needs to do or to get involved in order for our communities to start thriving again?
I think it starts with mindset, man. Like, we have to take pride in our homes with showing positive Black images, with being educated on our heroes, on our inventors, on the people that have made positive contributions to our society. We have to get shown those images early. Like my niece, I only buy her books with Black children in them because I want her to see herself in the highest light. I think that if we start with changing our mindset, organically, it's gonna start to be I don't even know what the word is I'm looking for is, but we'll start to unify. Because with me, I know once I started reading Malcolm, once I started looking at Garvey, once I started exploring Martin more, it's like, these are smart guys that had great insights and great ideas and were teaching Black people. I want to do the same thing. So I think it starts with the mindset. From there, it's obviously we got to circulate our dollars. We have to see. But if you don't have a mindset to have pride within yourself and have pride in people that look like you, they just go off the strength. Like, oh, you Black, you need something, got you. You know what I'm saying? Or, oh, you Black, let's work together. We have to have that type of mindset just because of, we out here, we're a minority in America. We had everything that's been against us. We got to work together so we can make things different for the next generation. Because if our generation doesn't do it, it's lost. Nothing's gonna change unless we are the generation that has to change it. So it starts with we got Google, we got YouTube. There's no reason for us to be uneducated. School don't matter. It starts at home. It starts with the self. being educated, changing the mindset to have pride within ourselves and within our group, because we need that. Because that's how everybody else operates. That's how everybody else operates.
And I'm reminded, like, with that, like, wanting to support other black people is like, they had a 400 head start. White people had a 400 head start.
Yeah, 400 head start.
But before us, and it's just like, yo, we need to support each other.
Yeah.
So getting more into that.
And now I'm gonna touch on that too, because you said that. I think we are, we heard the crab in the barrel mentality, where I think we have been a victim of that thinking, where it's too hard. White folks have had all these advantages and we can't do it. But it's true that we cannot do it on our own. You can't start a business as a black man, black woman, and you're 9 out of 10 times you're going to get denied from capital for the bank, so you're going to be underfunded.
Yeah.
You cannot successfully grow a business if you do not work together, or you do not bring your skill sets with other people who have different skill sets than you, and you don't work together. Because if it's impossible to beat this system with just one person. Yeah. It's impossible for there to be. That's why there's not 50 Jay-Z's. There's only one. Yeah. And we can talk about Jay-Z.
But work ethic,
yeah.
Now, speaking of Jay-Z, did you feel like, talk your thoughts on the whole NFL thing? That was one of my questions. Your thoughts on that?
So I like the people I really look up to in a hip hop game is Dame Dash and Master P. Yeah. And because Dame Dash is a person that has always been about independence, but he's also about empowerment. Like he said on an interview, he was like, I didn't want my friends to work for me. I wanted us to all feel like bosses. So if I need a $5 million loan, I can go to him and say, bro, I need a loan. And he gives it to me. Like he wants to be around his friends to all be empowered enough to be in that position. Yeah. Whereas I feel like Jay is okay with being a boss, but he's okay with also just having a boss. Yeah. So even though I love Jay-Z's music, I like what he stands for. I think just the NFL move and the whole Kaepernick situation just didn't sit right with me. The workout that was organized, and Stephen A. said him and Rock Nation was working together, and it's like it just doesn't seem right to me. Okay. It doesn't seem right to me. Yeah. Like I feel like Jay could use his platform a lot more responsibly, and he doesn't. Like he doesn't talk about economic empowerment. Like he doesn't, do education seminars or anything like that, or like Dame Dash does. So I would want him to use his influence a lot more responsibly. So that's my only knock with Jay. Okay.
Another stat that you had said, you said white students would receive up to 700% more funding and resources than black students. How is that so? And like, what does this statement communicate to you when you hear something like that?
So resources could be anything from, they had the newest smart board in their classrooms, or they had the brand new textbook, so they had improved nutrition and health with their food. So all I was saying was pretty much is that whites are getting up to 7 times more money put into their schools than our black students. So you can have even now you can have a mentor at a school called East Union. Very low income neighborhood school out in Marshville, North Carolina, right close to Wingate. And I see the books that they have. I see the way the school just as itself looks, and everything is old and outdated. All right, where I could go to a school in Charlotte, a prep school, or I can go to Providence Day or something like that. And they got gates outside their joint.
You been to Charlotte like that?
They got gates, and all the kids get iPads and stuff like that. So they have an advantage over these kids that are in Monroe or in Wingate, where they don't have the money to put into the school. So it's just that's an extra head start.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you got better ways to do your homework. You can do it faster. You can learn more.
Yeah. So like, what's a step in the right direction for America when it comes to the educational system?
Personally, I think that education in America, if they're going to move to this, free and equitable education system, I feel like every student, if you're going to have an education system in America that is public, okay, and I don't care private, we don't own that. We don't, you can do whatever you want. But if you're in a public school, no matter if you're in an inner city school, if you're a suburban school, the curriculum should be the same. The resources should be the same. These kids should have literally the exact same opportunity to learn and develop. If we don't have that, then we're okay with being a nation of inequality.
Yeah.
And I think with capitalism, just that system thrives on inequality, but we're in a dangerous position right now, whereas wealth inequality hasn't been this bad since before the Great Depression.
Wow.
And we're in the longest economic expansion right now, but a recession, a market correction is coming.
Yeah.
And it could either be a little minor, different than 2008, or it could be catastrophic, because I was looking at a chart, and I think the difference between poor and middle class is literally maybe 2 paychecks.
Wow.
And the majority of us are living paycheck to paycheck. So if an economic downturn happens, what does that say?
Everybody's gonna be in the same boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the wealthy are going to be great.
Yeah.
But now, what does the majority of Americans
Yeah.
do? So I think if we say education is the answer, we have to make it equal and equal in access and equal in resources across the board, no matter what. I think that should be a right of every citizen. You should be able to get the same education as everybody else, no matter what your skin looks like, no matter how much money your parents have, no matter the neighborhood you live in. You should be able to have the same books and get the same schooling as somebody who has a lot more, unless they're in a private school.
Yeah. So with that, this last question I want to ask you, I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, but like, what are some systematic things, like if you can give me 3 systematic changes that need to occur that you feel like in order for Black America to succeed, but just in general, what do you feel like, man, there's a system that needs to be attacked, that needs to be overturned? What are some 3 systematic, if you have 3 systematic changes? That was a deep question.
I think definitely the criminal justice system, for sure. I think that should be reworked in a sense where it's a rehabilitation program.
Okay.
Like, because these prisoners are going to jail and they're working for corporations. Like, I think Lil Duval homie Jay Ski, he was working at a ramen noodle factory while he was in jail.
Wow.
So those type of companies, they're paying, because America is always, slavery was about cheap labor. You know what I'm saying? You don't got to pay nobody, so you get all the profits. And America has always been about, how can I get my profit the highest and my cost the lowest? So they're going to always chase after cheap labor. That's why companies outsource to Mexico and China and all that. So if we don't change that system of capitalism, then everything else outside of it kind of is just like surface level. So I think we need to move away from pure capitalism to more, I would say it's probably termed socialist capitalism, but where the government is more involved in regulating these big companies and making sure that we have a standard living wage. Like, nobody should be working for $8, $7, $10 an hour, because you can't live on that now. So that has to be changed for sure. So I think the government has to get involved more in private industry, whether that's nationalizing stuff like our oil production and taking that away from private institutions, or just having more regulations in how companies operate, doing audits on companies to make sure that they're hiring people of color, that they're paying women and men the same, that they're paying people of color and non-people of color the same, and making sure that everybody has a fair living wage. Criminal justice, making that rehabilitation program so it's not a badge of shame anymore, because the majority of people in prison are Black and brown. and they get out, they can't get anything but the lowest wage job. So it's impossible for them to be back in society unless they're doing something illegal. So if we could maybe make prison, everybody is mandatory that you get a GED, that you get 2 years of a skill or a trade, so that they're equipped when they come out to be producing citizens. I think that's important. And then third, I think that America has to address reparations for Black people, and especially descendants of slavery, because we are set to, there's been multiple reports that we're set to be at zero wealth by 2053. And yeah, Black Americans are set to have zero wealth by 2053.
Probably 2 billion or 2 trillion spending power.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But when you see, like, that's why immigration is so important, like the larger game, because America is preparing to move away from Black people. As far as being like the
How do you feel that? Why do you feel so? Why do you feel that?
Yes, just because Hispanics are close to outnumbering us, but they're gonna move past this. And we're trying to open the borders now to get more immigrants, because that ties to more lower wage jobs and things like that labor. So Blacks are kind of in a limbo where we're stuck between two groups. We're no longer the dominant minority anymore. So our issues aren't going to be cared about. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you don't hear Asian American issues talked about right now.
Yeah,
that's eventually how it's going to be with Black folks. Because candidates already aren't really touching on stuff for specific to Black Americans. And now they've moved 100% of their efforts on DACA, immigration reform, to try to get more people that aren't American. Like, we done been here the longest, but yet none of our rights or issues are being addressed.
Why do you feel like that's so? Because I'm like, going back to me saying I grew up in that church context, Republican context, you just really heard stuff that kind of aligned to the Bible, but never really like Black Americans. Like, now I'm like, I don't really care about, I want to know, okay, what are we doing for Black people?
That's
how come you don't feel like we don't hear that?
I think that because America knows how dangerous we are if we're united. Because that's all, like, white people are defined as, you could be Russian, you could be German, you could be French. If they all in a room together, they ain't German, French, or they all white. But you can have, when Black people are in a room together, it's in working together in a positive light. It's threatening. Yeah. Because they already know we're superior athletically. We done been here the longest. We done invented so much. We smart. We're innovators and disruptors of culture. We literally control America and how it's seen internationally. But we don't get any fruits of the labor from it because we'll be too powerful. And white people are literally the minority on the world. It's more people of color than our whites. So that programming and that mindset of superiority. So you see a bunch of white superheroes. As a kid, you see that, like, oh, I can be a superhero. Just imagine if you would have saw Black Panther as a 4-year-old. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Would have done something on the inside.
You know, so it would have made you feel like, yo, I can be this. Like, I could work with people, and I can, you know, I could be powerful. Or if you knew about the thousands of Black inventors, like if you knew every time you went to a stoplight, oh, Black man did that. Dang, I want to be an inventor. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that in itself is powerful. That's why we don't see positive images. Now we see rap go to the lead. You know, we see our musicians and we see our athletes showing the most, because that's all that we reminded that we could be. So when you go to a school now, like my middle school, what y'all want to be? 8 out of the 13 of them want to go to the NFL. Because they don't think they can do anything else. They don't think they can take care of their family by being a lawyer, because they don't see it. So I think that it's just keeping us in a subservient position.
Word. I appreciate you coming through, bro. That's
Thank you, man.
powerful. I hope y'all got something from all this.
Please.
I hope y'all got something from all this. Any final thoughts about any forward things that people need to do in order to keep Black America thriving?
Just keep the conversation going, man. Talk to your parents about these issues. Ask them why they believe the things that they believe. Why they vote Democrat. You know what I'm saying? Have these type of conversations with your family, your friends, and just really start to take pride in people that look like you and reach out and work out with people like we are right now.
So shout out all your socials, everything you got going on.
Yeah. You can hit me on IG, Twitter, at brotherblue_, at Trillionaires Pod for Trillionaires, at Living Single Pod for Living Single. Shopthecreatorsclothing.com for the merch. At Purposeful Consultant if you need, help with business.
Links below.
Yeah. So,
check out that Trillionaires podcast. It will definitely bless you. Appreciate you coming through, bro.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Until next time, this was Tapped In. Peace.